beware of spoilers. I am Adam. It is Saturday, the 21st of May. How is everyone doing? What the fuck? You're in the middle of the road, motherfucker. So I was gonna see Men yesterday, and then I had a migraine. I think it's from I keep sleeping wrong. Which is one of those things. I heard a comedian once talk about it. He's like, I slept wrong. I was like, well, how did you fuck that up? Well, apparently, I put a pillow the wrong way under me when I fall asleep. I end up with severe neck and head pain, and I can't go and, sit in a movie theater then for another 2 hours or so and deal with that without feeling incredible amounts of discomfort. So I ended up not seeing Men last night, but I did watch Chippendale Rescue Rangers because that is available to stream, and I can do that while laying down and nursing a migraine. And it's a pretty solid movie. I was genuinely surprised, and I think that one of the things that I looked into the production history of this movie because I was a little why was this not a theatrical release is my question. And I'm seeing that more and more with these Disney Plus movies that should have been theatrical releases but are not. I mean, there's the obvious Turning Red, but Diary of a Wimpy Kid is perfectly passable. And in the style of in the style of the book, and it's a very faithful adaptation of the book, from the way I remember the book at least, and it worked very well. I'm confused as to why that went to Disney Plus instead of going to theatrical. If it was a series, a series of episodes of a TV show, I would understand it. But considering it's a series of movies, it would have done well theatrically, I think. Especially how low budget it was. And then, obviously Turning Red was designed for a theatrical experience. It was designed for that. I mean, up until the week after the movie got pulled from the theatrical slate and put right to Disney Plus, it was, it was put in, there was a giant theater standee, that I looked at every time I went to the movies. And it's one of those things, I'm watching this and I'm like, well, why the fuck is this not a theatrical release? This is a very entertaining movie. And there's nothing about it that screams this has to go streaming. It just feels like it went streaming because it's trying to bolster the Disney Plus numbers, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think that this is something that's going to get people who don't already have Disney Plus to subscribe, which is why it's a little confusing to me, where it's well, why is this an original thing going here instead of going theatrical? For me, if I'm Disney and I'm Disney Plus, I would be doing more series on Disney Plus, not movies. Because the idea of the movie is why not go, unless it's a movie that like Lady and the Tramp, I can understand, because I don't think Lady and the Tramp had quite the die-hard fan base that The Lion King did or anything like that. It's a perfectly serviceable movie, but outside of that one sequence with them with the spaghetti, it's not a memorable movie. Besides that and the racist Siamese cats, I remember too. But besides those two things, that movie doesn't stand out. It's if they did a live-action Fox and the Hound, I may get crucified for this, but I feel like that's another one that would do well on Disney Plus instead of doing well in theatrical, because I don't think the Fox and the Hound has quite that. But then again, I don't think the Jungle Book had quite that thing, although there was Tailspin. I mean, we're getting off topic here. So Chippendale Rescue Rangers is not a reboot of it in so much as it's about, a continuation of the story, or taking the story as we knew it in the 1980, 1990, late 80s, early 90s TV show, and then reinvigorating it for a modern audience. It's a continuation of the story in a really weird way, where it's, wow, that is a risky maneuver, that motherfucker. It is a reboot in the sense that it is, it is about the actors Chippendale who are playing themselves in the show, who reunite because there's one of their co-stars, Monterey Jack, gets kidnapped by an organized crime syndicate of bootleggers who kidnap cartoon characters and bootleg them for foreign markets. It's one of those things where it like, number one, I feel like Disney talking about copyright law is something that they should kind of stray away from, because not only do they have their current issues with copyright law and all of that, but also they have the what's it called? A good amount of their fortune has been made taking public domain stories and then animating them, which they do amazing animation, but at the end of the day, you're taking a story that's not yours and doing this with it, and it's just kind of an odd decision, I think, to sit here and point fingers like this. I feel like the trailer spoiled one of the best things in the movie, is that it's a Disney movie, so like the bad guy they keep alluding to is Sweet Pete, like throughout the movie, and it's like, oh, who's Sweet Pete? And then it's like, my assumption, and the thing is, this was spoiled for me because I saw a TV spot before I watched the movie, during the Ranger game, and with fitting, and as I'm watching it, they make a reference to, what's it called? They make a reference to you see who Sweet Pete is, and it's a middle-aged version of Peter Pan, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I think you can play on that a little bit more, because Disney animation tends to have Pete, you know, I think he is a cat, but he's not Pete the Cat, the current character that everyone under a certain age knows, that my mom is very familiar with, because she teaches kindergarten, but, there's this, you know, this idea that there is definitely a, that's a one-lane road, motherfucker. It is, like, Pete is, you know, the perennial Disney villain, and they could have done that, and then play on that a little bit, and then go, and it's Peter Pan. But there are a lot of really funny moments in this movie that work really well, like when they go to Main Street, and it's Main Street USA, and it's just, like, everything is a front for, everything there's a front for some kind of drug or trafficking or something, and it's like, they go to, like, I guess it's not Swedish Chef, because I don't think the Muppets wanted Swedish Chef to be a drug lord, but Keegan-Michael Key plays basically Swedish Chef, as a drug lord, and he's doing the voice, like Swedish Chef, like introducing all the cheeses, and then it's like, oh, we want the stinky cheese, which is like, I guess it's like a drug, because it's like, you know, it creates the scent trails that people follow, and that's what Monterey Jack was selling his was in debt over, was that, and it's like he cuts it out immediately and stops doing the fake sweets. It's so fun. And then at one point, there's another thing that's really funny where they're investigating Monterey Jack's disappearance, and it's like the detective is he's a block of clay. I think his name's like Detective Putty or something, because he's just a block of clay. And then it's like they're investigating, and then it's like, because it's a world where animation exists and all of that, there is this, like, you know, there are things that are size accommodating for smaller animated creatures, like the chipmunks and stuff. Like, they have chipmunk-sized cars and chipmunk-sized, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So, like, it's chipmunk-sized housing, so they're inside investigating, and then the detective comes over to the window, and it's like the third-story window, and she just pops her head into the window and is like, hey, what's up? And then another detective shows up, and it's just a sock puppet. And it just pops up out of the bottom of the screen, and it just starts talking. It's literally just a person with a sock. It's so funny. And it's one of those things where it's like, I wasn't expecting this movie to be as good as it is. And it is a surprisingly solid movie for what it is. Like, I definitely had... There's definitely a world in which this is a much worse movie. Especially for a movie that is so clearly inspired by Who Framed Roger Rabbit. and it manages to do what it does without feeling derivative, which is a huge achievement in that regard. Again, I would have rather this movie went theatrical. I feel like there's definitely an avenue for this movie to go theatrical, and I'm surprised it didn't, and I'm not entirely sure why it didn't either. That's the other problem, is I'm not sure why this movie didn't go theatrical. But it's funny, it's entertaining, and it's definitely worth your time to watch, and it's on Disney Plus, including your subscription, so it's not like you gotta, sit here and spend money to go see it. I don't really know how much further to go with this, because there's not too much more it's not that the movie doesn't have a lot to talk about. There is plenty, it's just very well done. So there's not too much more to go with, to harp on, because, there is just the copyright issue and the distribution issue, but those are not things that really fall into the purview of what this is. I mean, the cameos are great. There's, Ugly Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog, that first trailer. There is Randy Marsh from South Park. E.T. and Batman both have cameos. There's a great background joke at one point in the movie that also made me laugh out loud, where they come out of the sewer and there's just a billboard behind them, and it says it's Les Mis, but it's a Lego version of it. It's an upcoming movie, and it's little things like that all through the movie that are really funny and really well done. It's family friendly while not being afraid to take itself seriously, and I think this movie really does succeed on its own. And I feel like this movie would have been a contender for at least a nomination for Best Animated Feature, if it came out in theaters. I don't know what the thought process was there. So we'll wrap up there for today. I think today I'm going to see Men, if not today, then tomorrow. So until then, have a great rest of your week.